It's time for episode 115 of The Crisis Show. Good afternoon from New York. My name is Rich Klein. I'm president of Rich Klein Crisis Management and founder and host of The Crisis Show. Today, in this abbreviated edition of The Crisis Show, I'm going to do something a little bit different, actually very different than what I've done before over the past 4 years. Today, please consider this an opinion piece. It is my opinion only, but it's also tied to what we talk about on the show, and that is communications and reputation. Last night, as many of you know already, Donald Trump won another primary in Nevada. And it seems at this point that he is the likely candidate to win the Republican nomination for president. And so therefore, I want to use this forum to talk about my concerns about that, but tied to your communications. Now, there are people out there who may think that, hey, Trump has succeeded with this kind of crazy rhetoric and crazy kind of presentation. But folks, what you have to understand is while he may be successful among some portion of the population, don't get any ideas of taking his approach to your speeches, to your communications, is a huge mistake. Donald Trump is peddling vicious bigotry. He is stereotyping many groups of people, and we've seen it over and over again. You know, as a kid, there was an old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. The truth is words do hurt. And the kind of words that Trump has used against Latinos, Muslims, Jews, Blacks, and particularly women are just unbelievable. It's bigotry in its purest form. It's stereotyping in its most traditional form. And for those of you out there who say, well, I like that he's going to make America great again, so I don't really think about the bigotry. I could put that aside. Well, folks, here's the thing. You can't separate what you think is good content from Trump from the vile bigotry. And we don't want any leader, particularly the President of the United States, to be using the P word and calling people names and threatening to punch them in the face and so on and so on. You guys have seen, I don't have to recite everything he said, but these are just vile things to say coming from any leader. So while you may think, hey, and actually some pundits have actually opined on some of the cable news networks that this is turning communications on its head, that things that you used to couldn't say, and they're right to some extent. We had an NBA owner get thrown out of the league because he made racist comments. We had Don Imus get in trouble because of his racist comments. We had Kramer from Seinfeld get in trouble because he used the N-word. So yet, despite these kinds of things, and Paula Deen and Mel Gibson, despite all these past incidents in recent years of people using horrible language and paying a price for it, Donald Trump has gotten away with it. So let's remember who we are as a country and as Americans. And we need to stand together against this kind of vile bigotry. You can vote any way you want, of course. I just feel it's important to call it for what it is. It's pure hatred. Now, as a Jew, I can tell you that most of us are very careful about making any comparisons to Hitler. In fact, we don't like it when people make Hitler jokes because it minimizes the atrocities of the Holocaust. But let me tell you, folks, one of my colleagues on the show, on the Crisis Show, Shell Holtz, a good friend of mine, actually wrote on his Facebook page today that, yes, indeed, there are comparisons. You know what? He's right. He's right because it's the same kind of tools that Hitler was using to rouse up his crowds in the early 1930s. And we all know where that led. It led not only to the Holocaust, the murder of 6 million Jews, but it also led to many, many Americans getting killed in Europe and elsewhere fighting the Nazis. So Trump may say, well, I support the veterans. At the same time, the people following Trump, the veterans following Trump, need to remember that Americans died fighting this kind of Nazi craziness, this kind of fear-mongering and hatred of a group of people. So remember who you have to look at the whole story. So I'm actually quite surprised that veterans of any kind, anybody who believes that Americans who fought and died fighting the Nazis were heroes. Anybody believes that, really, if they think about it, how can they support a guy like Trump who is really playing the same game that Hitler did? And we all know where that led, as I said before. So back to communication skills. Yes, things have changed a little bit. Trump is getting away with things nobody has gotten away with before. But that's because the media and good Americans of goodwill, haven't stood up and said, enough. This is not acceptable. This is not who we are. So that is the show for today. I had to get that off my chest. I thought this show was the best vehicle to do it. Again, this is the Crisis Show. We're talking about communication, so it's relevant, but it is my opinion only, what you just heard. If you want to tweet about anything I said, please use hashtag the Crisis Show. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.